It started with a number that made even veteran FBI agents stop cold: 100 million in stolen digital assets, vanished across borders with no fingerprints, no passports, and no trace. For months, American companies reported a mysterious wave of breaches. Defense contractors, engineering firms, and software developers were finding their most valuable tools: proprietary code, design systems, and encryption keys for sale online at a fraction of the price. The source? A quiet server traced back to Chengdu, China, where one man, Xiang Li, had built an underground marketplace that became the backbone of a global piracy empire. He wasn't a hacker who broke into bank accounts for quick cash. He was something far more dangerous: a broker of stolen technology, selling America's innovations to anyone with cryptocurrency and no questions asked. As investigators dug deeper, they realized his network wasn't just about profit. It was feeding some of the most advanced cyber operations targeting the United States. But here's what no one could explain. How did one man in China manage to infiltrate hundreds of American systems, distribute thousands of cracked programs, and move millions of dollars without ever setting foot on US soil? The trail that began with missing source code would soon lead to an international sting operation and the arrest that exposed China's $100 million cyber empire. Before he became the face of one of the largest cyber piracy networks in history, Xiang Li was just another computer enthusiast from Chengdu, Sichuan province. Born in the early 1980s, he grew up fascinated by technology in a decade when China's internet revolution was only beginning. Friends described him as quiet, analytical, and obsessed with solving problems others couldn't. In his 20s, he launched what appeared to be a small software distribution site, offering programs that promised to help businesses save money. At first glance, it looked legitimate: clean interfaces, customer support, even business licenses displayed on the homepage. His operation seemed like an example of China's digital entrepreneurship at its best. What customers didn't realize was that behind the professional facade lay a vast system of stolen software, everything from aerospace design tools and engineering programs to US government encryption systems. By repackaging and reselling these high-end tools at a fraction of their real cost, Li quickly gained a loyal following among global clients, including freelancers and small companies across Asia, Europe, and even the United States. Many didn't question the unbelievable deals. They saw only opportunity. For a time, the illusion held perfectly. Reviews on forums praised his reliability. Transactions through cryptocurrency wallets made payments fast and untraceable. The site's earnings quietly climbed into the millions, while Li stayed hidden behind anonymous usernames and offshore domains. His business appeared legitimate enough that some American users even believed they were buying from authorized distributors. The early years painted a picture of success: a young Chinese tech entrepreneur building a digital empire through innovation. Local media occasionally highlighted similar online businesses, portraying them as proof of China's rising technological power. But somewhere between ambition and greed, Xiang Li crossed a line. One of his clients noticed a small anomaly: a product activation key that matched a version used exclusively by a US defense contractor. That single detail, a string of letters and numbers, would soon unravel the entire network. Because what looked like a harmless marketplace for cheap software was, in reality, a multi-million-dollar black market, draining intellectual property from American industries and funneling it into the hands of unknown buyers around the world. The illusion of success had worked until that one code didn't match. When FBI cybercrime analysts began tracing the unusual activation codes, they uncovered a labyrinth of deception that stretched far beyond what anyone expected. The man they were after, Xiang Li, wasn't just selling counterfeit software. He had engineered a global supply chain for digital theft. His primary website, hidden behind layers of proxy servers and encrypted relays, was known among insiders as the Crack 99 network. It functioned like an underground version of Amazon, where users could browse and purchase thousands of cracked US software products, including high-value tools for military simulation, aerospace engineering, and industrial design. The scale was staggering. Investigators discovered more than 500 American software titles hosted across multiple servers in China, Hong Kong, and Malaysia, each stripped of licensing protections and embedded with custom activation bypasses created by Li himself. His clients included engineers, research students, and private companies looking to save money, and unknowingly supporting a $100 million piracy ring. Payment was simple: PayPal clones, cryptocurrency wallets, or prepaid cards routed through a series of shell accounts. Each transaction was instantly laundered through digital wallets in Singapore and offshore bank accounts in the Seychelles, making the funds virtually untraceable. But Li didn't act alone. The FBI's Delaware Field Office and Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, later confirmed that he collaborated with freelance hackers who specialized in extracting license keys from American firms. In return, he offered them a cut of every sale. Together, they created a self-sustaining ecosystem. Hackers stole intellectual property, Li sold it to global buyers, and the profits funded new attacks. By the time US authorities realized what was happening, millions of dollars in proprietary data had already vanished. To the average buyer, it looked harmless: pay online, download instantly, and start using premium US software. But to American companies, each download meant lost revenue, breached contracts, and compromised security. One particularly alarming case involved a military contractor whose design tool for guided missile components was found listed on Li's marketplace for just $45. What once cost $40,000 per license was being sold for the price of dinner. The deeper investigators went, the more disturbing the connections became. Hidden in server logs were IP addresses linked to university labs in Beijing, state-owned enterprises, and even suspected cyber units tied to China's Ministry of State Security, MSS. Whether Li was directly connected to government actors remains unclear, but his platform had clearly become a pipeline, funneling stolen Western technology into the hands of entities with both economic and strategic motives. The Department of Justice, DOJ, described his operation as one of the most damaging intellectual property crimes in US history. Yet for all its sophistication, the network had one weakness: human error. In 2013, a US undercover agent posing as a buyer began communicating with Li, requesting bulk orders worth tens of thousands of dollars. Li, confident in his anonymity, agreed to meet personally to expand business to American partners. What he didn't know was that the FBI had already set the trap. Because while the world saw a faceless hacker hiding behind encrypted screens, the United States saw something else: an opportunity to strike back. By the time the FBI launched its undercover operation, Xiang Li's empire had already reached a level of power that made him nearly untouchable. From a small apartment in Chengdu, he was managing a digital marketplace with more than 150,000 registered users spread across 40 countries. Each day, his servers processed hundreds of orders for stolen US software, engineering tools, defense simulations, medical imaging systems, worth tens of millions of dollars in real-world value. The profits were enormous, and Li spent them lavishly. Investigators later found photos of luxury cars, Macau casino trips, and private parties where he boasted about outsmarting the Americans. In Chinese online forums, he was treated like a legend, the hacker who beat the system. Li's business model evolved quickly. He began offering custom requests, allowing clients to submit specific programs they wanted cracked. When one European firm asked for a satellite navigation design suite, Li delivered a fully working version within 48 hours. His customer service rivaled legitimate corporations, email confirmations, refund guarantees, and even technical support. To outsiders, it seemed like a booming startup, not a $100 million piracy ring. The illusion of legitimacy was so complete that several American engineers unknowingly purchased cracked versions of their own company's software through his site. While Li's reputation grew, so did his arrogance. He started experimenting with offshore partnerships, including one with a distributor in Malaysia who helped mask transactions using fake import invoices. The money flowed through Singapore, Hong Kong, and Seychelles, then quietly re-entered China as digital consulting revenue. These layers of financial camouflage made his empire look untraceable, until Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, and the Department of Justice, DOJ, decided to strike. In late 2012, a team of undercover agents based in Delaware initiated direct contact with Li. Using encrypted chats, they posed as representatives of a US firm seeking large-scale licensing solutions. Li took the bait. Over several months, he sold them dozens of pirated programs, transferring thousands of gigabytes of data to what he believed were American clients. Each file he sent was evidence, carefully documented, time-stamped, and linked to his digital fingerprints. Despite growing signs of surveillance, Li remained confident. He bragged to his associates that no one could ever touch him because the Americans don't have jurisdiction here. But what he didn't know was that the next step in the FBI's plan would move the game onto neutral ground, where jurisdiction wouldn't matter. In June 2013, Xiang Li received an invitation to meet a potential investor in Saipan, a US territory in the Pacific. The deal promised to expand his business into legitimate American distribution. Tempted by the chance to go global and the six-figure contract, Li boarded the flight. It was a decision that would end his freedom forever. When his plane landed, FBI agents and Homeland Security officers were already waiting. Within minutes, the man who had built a $100 million empire from behind a keyboard was in handcuffs. The illusion of invincibility was over. The arrest of Xiang Li in Saipan marked the climax of a case that had spanned 4 continents, dozens of law enforcement agencies, and nearly $100 million in stolen US software. As the FBI and Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, escorted him off the plane, they knew they had captured not just a hacker, but the architect of an underground economy that had bled American innovation for years. The sting had been meticulously planned. Undercover agents had lured him with a fake business deal, recorded every conversation, and traced every transaction. When Li stepped onto US territory, his digital empire collapsed in real time. Servers shut down, payments froze, and his associates went silent. The evidence was overwhelming. Investigators seized more than 2 terabytes of stolen data, including cracked versions of programs used by NASA, the US Army, and multiple Fortune 500 companies. Internal chat logs revealed that Li had knowingly targeted American firms, bragging that Western corporations will never notice. Prosecutors described his network as one of the most significant software piracy operations ever uncovered. The Department of Justice, DOJ, filed charges for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, criminal copyright infringement, and aggravated identity theft. In court, Li appeared calm, even defiant. His defense argued that he was a digital reseller, not a criminal, and that the US had exaggerated the damages. But the numbers spoke for themselves: more than 100 million in losses, thousands of illegal downloads, and hundreds of compromised servers. Witnesses from American defense contractors testified how the leaks had jeopardized national security, with one system engineer calling Li's actions a cyber attack disguised as business. The trial revealed chilling details. Li's servers contained fragments of classified adjacent software that could be repurposed for military use. Some of his buyers were traced to state-linked organizations in China, while others operated in Eastern Europe and the Middle East. Even if Li never wrote a single line of malicious code, his marketplace had armed unknown actors with tools capable of breaching governments and corporations alike. In May 2014, the verdict came down. The federal court in Delaware sentenced Xiang Li to 12 years in U.S. federal prison, one of the harshest penalties ever handed down for cyber piracy. Authorities also announced the seizure of his digital assets, including multiple offshore accounts and cryptocurrency wallets. Yet, even as prosecutors celebrated, one mystery remained. Where was the rest of the money? Investigators estimated that at least $30 million had vanished through unidentified crypto channels, possibly laundered back into Asia through anonymous exchanges. As Li was led from the courtroom in chains, journalists outside asked him if he had any regrets. He reportedly paused, smirked, and said, "They finally caught up." For the FBI, that was confirmation enough. The myth of invincibility had ended. But for investigators, it also raised a darker question. How many others like him were still out there, hidden behind screens, selling America's future for cryptocurrency? When the FBI closed the case on Xiang Li, officials believed they had dismantled one of the most dangerous piracy rings ever connected to China's cyber underground. But as forensic teams sifted through his encrypted drives, they discovered something unsettling: fragments of code, transaction records, and contact lists pointing to a far larger network that didn't end with him. Among the data were references to other platforms with eerily similar structures: Crack Portal, CN Soft Hub, and Black Silicon. Each mirrored Li's marketplace model: anonymous accounts, cryptocurrency payments, and pirated US technology for sale. Some were already active again within weeks of his arrest, suggesting that Li had merely been one node in a sprawling ecosystem of digital theft. Intelligence analysts began to see a pattern. The network seemed to evolve like a living organism, replacing compromised parts almost instantly. Several domains connected to Li's old associates reappeared under new names hosted in Hong Kong, Taiwan, and even Eastern Europe. They continued selling the same cracked software, including high-value tools from American aerospace, defense, and medical sectors. What had once been one man's operation now looked like a decentralized $15 million global black market, quietly shifting the balance of technological power. US investigators also uncovered links to so-called training communities in Chinese tech universities, where young programmers were allegedly taught to reverse engineer foreign software for research purposes. Some of those students later appeared on encrypted forums tied to Li's marketplace. Whether state-sponsored or independently motivated, these groups operated under a shared understanding that Western intellectual property was theirs for the taking. The Department of Justice, DOJ, later stated that Li's case highlighted the industrial-scale theft of American technology. But privately, officials admitted the real problem was systemic. Each time one marketplace fell, another surfaced within months, often protected by foreign jurisdictions unwilling to cooperate. The digital, borderless nature of cybercrime meant that even a decisive conviction couldn't stop the trade. Experts from Interpol and Europol warned that Li's operation had inspired a new generation of cybercriminals who blended legitimate business tactics with underground distribution. One cybersecurity analyst called it the globalization of intellectual theft. These actors weren't just hackers. They were entrepreneurs of espionage, monetizing national secrets with startup efficiency. Today, years after Xiang Li's sentencing, much of his stolen code has resurfaced on dark web markets. The usernames have changed, but the business model remains. And despite stricter US sanctions and corporate firewalls, the demand for cheap, stolen software persists. Li may have fallen, but his creation lives on, a ghost network that continues to siphon innovation from the world's most advanced economies. Because if $100 million in American technology could disappear with a few clicks, one has to wonder, how many secrets are still being sold right now behind encrypted doors? The story of Xiang Li isn't just about one hacker or even one $100 million crime. It's about the invisible war over knowledge, where lines of code are worth more than gold and borders no longer protect what nations create. For years, Li thrived because the world underestimated him, a man with no weapons, no armies, only a keyboard and ambition. Yet, with that alone, he stole technology that powered America's defense, infrastructure, and innovation. His downfall proved that the United States could reach across oceans to bring justice, but it also exposed how fragile that justice truly is in the digital age. Every click, every download, every shortcut taken in the name of convenience now carries a shadow. Somewhere, behind an encrypted server in Chengdu or Hong Kong, another network is forming, learning from Li's mistakes, perfecting the business of theft. And while one hacker sits behind bars, the system he helped build continues to evolve, faster, smarter, harder to catch. We like to believe that cybercrime happens in secret corners of the internet, but maybe, as Li's case showed, the real danger isn't hiding in the dark. It's hiding in plain sight, inside every unverified link, every pirated app, every too-good-to-be-true offer. Because in a world where a man from China can steal $100 million without leaving his apartment, the next question isn't who will do it again, it's when. You've been watching Crisis Classified. Until the next case, stay aware.